Hey, Dee, what's so funny?
I'm just looking at some pics from a couple years ago.
Aw, the aquarium. These are amazing. And those rockhopper penguins need to open up their own salon.
Photos of our group lunch are still up. Not as psyched about these.
Yeah, that hat was, how come?
I mean, you know how passionate I am about being a vegetarian now. And look at me in this pic. I am clearly eating a pepperoni pizza.
So, you want to delete the pictures you took a couple of years ago just because you have a different diet now?
Well, it's not just that. You know how I've been posting more about being a vegetarian and how eating less meat can be good for the environment?
Of course, I've seen your posts. I actually learn a lot from them. And you're starting to get a bigger following too, aren't you?
Yes. Well, that was kind of my goal. I want to use my account to help others be more conscious about environmental stuff.
I see, and sharing your experience of being vegetarian helps you with that goal.
Exactly. But I feel like these old pictures of my life as a carnivore don't feel true to who I am now. That feels a bit weird.
I see what you're saying. But people change their views on things, and that's okay.
I guess you're right. But I still think I'd like to go through some of these old pictures and delete a few. I mean, look at the hat I was wearing.
Curating or picking and choosing what you share about yourself online isn't necessarily all good or all bad. Oh, David, I think you'll totally relate to this video I saw.
With social media, with the internet, you're able to pick and choose what people see. And it has its pros and cons.
I'm an athlete and I'm going to attend college. With that in mind, I have to pay attention to scouts, I have to pay attention to other colleges and teachers and other opportunities that might be coming my way.
I would say that curating your social media can be positive.
People can see the very best life that you're living, and people can see you being happy all the time.
It kind of gives you the power to be who you want to be and only let people see what you want them to see. It can turn negative really fast.
If you are constantly displaying yourself as always happy, it can create a lot of anxiety and depression, just a lot of stress.
When I post something, I'm checking it very frequently to see how it's doing compared to my other pictures. If it's not getting as many likes as my other pictures, I might delete it.
We only see the greatest moments or the happiest moments of people, and we don't know what happens beyond those moments or what they've done to get to those moments.
Wow. I never thought about colleges or job recruiters reading my old posts.
Right? Like, I've never considered how the way we use tech can actually impact our futures. Which is why I really like your idea of looking at your digital footprint.
What do you mean?
Like all the information that exists about you online. Like the photos you want to curate.
Ah, yeah. I think going over...
Sorry guys, let me press continue.
Okay, so on that note, let's do a little search of myself.
Love it. Taking an outsider's look at your digital footprint.
Okay, so there's a bunch of fun family birthday pics. Some good memories there. Keep. And a little bit from a camping trip. Keep. And there's a food pic. That's pretty neutral, I guess. And another food pic. And, oh, look, a food pic. And, yeesh. Look at all these posts from the time I did a family road trip to Colorado.
So much detail. But honestly, I think it's pretty common to want to document everything that happens. And phones just make it so easy. Oversharing is definitely a thing. Here, let me show you.
Oversharing to me is putting too much of your personal life in front of a wide audience of people.
Posting something for the sake of showing that you're there and maybe not because you're actually having that great of a time.
Posting about things that people don't necessarily think are significant, but they're just kind of posting to be posting.
What you share and how often you share is going to affect the way that somebody views you. Just because I'm going to post all the time, that doesn't mean that you're going to get all the attention. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to like you.
Yeah, I've definitely been an oversharer at times. Like with these food pics. I'm also realizing that a lot of my footprint is made up of pictures that other friends have posted. I can't delete those even if I wanted to. See, this one is on somebody's page named Skylar.
Oh, I know her. I guess it's a good reminder that things I post don't just affect my own digital footprint, but other people's too.
And it's not just the people we know either. It could affect the world. In a good way even. Remember these pics of the hiking trail?
Yes, that was when we did our cleanup project at the park for Earth Day.
This is something I'd be proud of anyone seeing for years to come. And it also just feels so related to the things I care about, like the environment.
Totally agree. I was super proud of that too. I remember we spent a lot of time researching the local plants and animals, and made those posters to put up around the school?
Yeah, and thanks to social media, I feel like we ended up getting quite a crowd to come out and support that day.
Yeah, technology can be a really beautiful thing. And it's pretty cool how one action can have a ripple effect of positivity.
These pics seem to be more like what we should be doing online, using tech with purpose, like for the things that you care about.
Using tech with purpose. I like that. And if you do that, you'll end up with a digital footprint that you can be proud of for years to come.
So now that we've talked through all this, I think I'm more clear about what I should be posting.
Less pizza and pad thai?
Yeah, and more posting with purpose.
Okay, so to do that, it seems like first, it's a good idea to get an occasional search of your own digital footprint. What cool stuff are you putting out there? And what have you put out there that's not as cool?
Yeah, it's okay to curate and delete things if they don't feel right. And it's also okay to just accept that people learn and grow. Moving forward, I know that I'm going to think before I post and ask myself, am I going to be embarrassed by this in the future? Is this something a college or employer would find inappropriate?
All good questions to ask. And I'm going to try to use my digital footprint to create awareness out there about issues that are important to me. I'd like to cut down on my carbon footprint, and that can be a theme of my digital footprint. And I bet that's something a college recruiter would love to see.
So, back to that pepperoni pizza picture. I've decided to leave it and just focus on how I can create more awareness around my journey to becoming a vegetarian, sharing some of the benefits and starting conversations to continue to learn more. As we said, it's all about connecting with purpose.
Okay, guys, so that brings us to the end of the video. Those videos are always so funny, but they're really informative. They're great. So I'm going to be now discussing, we're going to discuss together, actually, I should say, a couple questions on the handouts, kind of like what we've been, doing the past couple weeks. So just give me a quick second here, and I'm going to pull that up. Yes. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Well, I'm a little slow. Okay. So we're going to start off with a handout. Sorry, guys, I have to do this again. It's really giving me a hard time. There we go. We're going to start off like we've been doing with a handout, and we're going to be discussing some of these questions together. I would recommend and, really suggest that you guys try to think about examples that apply to your life, and really anything that comes to mind, you're welcome to share. It does not have to be a perfect answer. I'm not looking for perfection, just more want to hear about your experiences and stuff. So let's get started. So this is kind of a recap from the video. So people use technology to pursue their passions and to achieve their goals that they set for themselves. In the video, Davida and Skylar reflected on the things that they do online, how they can build a digital footprint that they're proud of and that can help them in their future. So I want you guys to think about your passions and goals. Consider how colleges and how job recruiters might feel when they see your online presence, what you post online and has it been tagged in certain things, and a post that you might think is temporary or private that can be screenshotted and shared by others. So what does your digital footprint say about you? Does it show who you are authentically, what's important to you, and what type of person you really are? So this activity, we're going to reflect on our digital footprint and think of ways that we can use technology to connect with purpose. So I'm going to go over a couple terms that were mentioned in the video. The first one is curate, and the word curate means to select, organize, and look after a collection. For example, content posted on social media. Digital footprint, that term refers to all the information online about a person, whether it's posted by that person or by other people, intentionally or unintentionally. And the third term is oversharing. So that's sharing personal feelings, information, experiences that make people, feel uncomfortable or regretful. So the first part of this is we're going to think carefully about the questions below, and we're going to consider how these answers can connect to our own digital life. So what are things that make up your digital footprint? The second question is, what makes you proud about your digital footprint? And the third question is there anything about your digital footprint that you regret? And what would you like to change or curate if you could? And again, the word curate means to select, organize, and look after a collection. For example, content posted on a social media profile. So I'm going to leave these first two questions up, and then we'll move on to that third question, and then lastly, the step two.
I would say what some things that make up your digital footprint are like posts that you make on Instagram
Mhm.
or on Snapchat
Yeah, yeah,
that always gets
absolutely.
tracked. Low key, like a lot of things go to the internet nowadays.
Oh
Like
my
you
gosh.
could with the phone number you could like track someone, see where they live. So that's
Mhm.
kind of like you have to kind of be like iffy about where to put your phone number in. Um,
100%. Yeah.
let's see.
Right. Even when you said
Uh,
Snapchat, Brandon, that kind of just made me think because, like, with Snapchat, when you send something, it's like gone, right? Like, after
mhm,
whatever it is, 30 seconds or 5 seconds. But, like, that kind of made me reflect because I send snaps all the time. I'm always on Snapchat. That's one of the platforms that I use the most. Maybe that's outdated. But it's kind of true that maybe it's not actually gone. Like, maybe that picture or whatever I sent is still somewhere, right? Like, it's not fully gone like I might think it is. So,
mhm.
that is a good point when you say digital footprint, that Snapchat's definitely on there for sure.
Yeah, there was this thing where I believe like Apple, it was like a bug on the Apple devices where
Oh,
it will like photos from years ago that people deleted will just appear
yeah.
on the phone.
Yeah, I heard about that. I was like, oh my goodness. Can you imagine even if you like sold your phone to someone and then all of a sudden they have like all your pictures and all your personal stuff? Like that's
Yeah,
bad.
like actually like so like kind of imagine like what the company keeps
Oh yeah,
like
I'm sure they,
in the
yeah,
background.
exactly. Exactly.
So they probably have like millions of photos of us.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
have to also like be cautious of like what pictures we take um
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well. So we kind of have to be cautious about like everything, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like just
absolutely.
think about what we're gonna post and how is it gonna affect us for the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Brandon, for sharing that. That's great. Does anyone
Oh,
else
and
have any thoughts? Yeah, sorry, go ahead,
oh,
Brandon.
I was gonna answer to the second. I was
Yeah,
gonna have an
please.
answer for the second question. Something that makes me proud about my digital footprint is that I tend to not post a lot. I
Mhm.
like keeping it like not in the gram and stuff because
Yeah, keeping it low key a
some
little
some
bit.
people are too nosy or like or sometimes it'd be like, oh, you did this without me or stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I like to stay low key and like not post too much. And also that's a benefit because it keeps you in the moment and like you
100%.
always you're always not posting what you're eating. You don't care to post at all, to be honest. Like I don't really
Yeah.
care to post at all. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's a good habit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I totally like I get where you're coming from, Brandon. I'm the same. I think like back in the day when I was younger, I wanted to post. I'm sure you guys can relate to this. You wanted to post everything and everything you eat everywhere you go. You want to post it on Instagram, on Snapchat, whatever. And I think when you get older, you kind of realize, okay, you're not really living in the moment as much. You're not really like enjoying that meal or really being present. And, for example, people at a concert, you'll see everyone with their phones up in the air, but it's like really like you're not really going to care to look back at that video. You want to feel, being present in that moment, that experience. And I think that technology is great, but it can take away that feeling a lot of the time. So it's important to reflect on that for sure. So I really like that point you made about being present. Yeah, that's great. Does anyone else have any thoughts on like what are things that make up your digital footprint? So that can be really anything you guys can share. And what makes you proud about your own digital footprint? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Like emails that you send and like
Hmm.
internets that you click into and they could all be tracked. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that really we're at a point that like everything can be tracked almost. So that's a good point. We have to be very careful at like what we're sending people and just keeping things secure as much as we can for sure. And not like taking pictures of things we wouldn't want on the internet or things like that. Absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any thoughts or anything that they want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, for things that make up my digital footprint, like it's mainly like all the things that we actually already talked about. So it's like my social media accounts, like emails and stuff like that. That's like my digital footprint would like consist of. And the thing that actually makes me like, I guess, somewhat like proud to an extent of it is that I try my best to like have like anonymity with my social
Mm.
media accounts. Like I try not to like link. It's only my Instagram that has like my actual like name on it, and like,
Yeah.
but like my the only app like the application that I use the most is like Twitter, and I don't even have my name on there. I don't put any like personal information on that on those
Yeah.
sites. And it's funny because for my Instagram, the one that I actually do have my actual like my full name like Jonathan Gutierrez, and like it's all my high school friends. It's I don't
Yeah.
know if it's because of my anonymity or not, or I don't know what, but it's to the point where like I get tagged in like pictures of like another kid named Jonathan because they think that that's me, and it's so weird. So like my digital footprint, like when I click on Instagram and I click on tags, it's like some random kid, and like that I guess that's a part of my digital footprint now. It's like this random kid from my high school, and they all think
That's
that it's
hilarious.
me. So
Yeah.
that's
At least they
so
don't
that
know
I
what
don't
you
know.
actually look like, right? Like if someone wants to know what you look like, they're not going to find it there because that's
Yeah.
how you know.
So yeah, that reminds me of like when you were reading the initial like the handout, it said something in the paragraph where it was like
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
private account, like it's tagged. Yeah, it says what you post online and have been tagged in is a part of your digital footprint. Yeah, like that jumped out to me
Mm.
because like that person is now a part of my digital footprint. I
Literally,
don't even know who they are.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
So
great point. Thanks for
yeah.
sharing that, Jonathan, sharing your experience with that. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm the same. Like, I don't have my full name on really anything. Maybe Facebook. I think most people have their full name on Facebook, but yeah, not Instagram, not Snapchat, none of that stuff. So I think it's better that way for sure. And I think that we're going to probably touch on this after, but you also have to think about when you're applying to college or applying to jobs that a lot of the time recruiters will actually look for you online. They will actually see like, what your social media is looking like, your LinkedIn, this, that. So it's important as well to keep in mind that those things can be seen and it actually can be a barrier for you when it comes to like, your career and getting a really good job. And that would suck, right? If there's a job you really want, and then they find your Instagram or whatever it is, your Twitter, and they're like, okay, the things you're posting are not so great. They don't represent our company well. So you wouldn't get the job because of that. So that's something, to keep in mind as well, how important it is to be, keep anonymity and try to be anonymous as much as possible and try not to, I guess, post things or write things that you wouldn't want people seeing, right? It's pretty, logical, but it's a fact. And a lot of people don't realize that. That's great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts. Does anyone else have any thoughts before I move on to that next part of the question? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Adding on to what you said about Snapchat, I like recently found out that you can download like all your data on I think it's on the Snapchat app, but like you could see all the snaps that you've like received, that you've sent, like all the chats and everything. So like everything is always there. Like it's never gonna like delete, you know?
Oh my God, that's crazy. I did not know
Yeah.
that. There's a way to download that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to. Just looking and seeing like, oh my gosh, all the people I've stopped in my life. I'm sure you guys are thinking the same. Like, yeah, I won't
Yeah.
be doing that anytime soon. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a very good thing to know for sure. But that just proves, like you said, Karen, how much is like actually stored online. Like they have so much data. It's pretty
And
crazy.
also another thing that I wanted to add,
Yeah.
about like data and stuff. I know Snapchat you I think it tracks your location as well. Like you could have
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it
know a
does.
lot of people like turned on their location and you were able to see your friends in a little mini
Hmm.
map, and
Hmm.
it will like pinpoint where exactly they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
I always had that ghost because I don't
Yeah.
like people knowing where I'm at. So
Understandably. Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing that's crazy. That's pretty scary. And like Google as well. I know Google like tracks where
Yeah.
you're at, certain pinpoints, the timestamps that you were there
For
for, how long you were
sure.
there for. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. That actually reminds me, like, I never, for example, on Google Maps, like when I'm using it to get around, I never like put where my home address is. Like I never like marked a certain address as being my home, but it like knows that my address is my home. So it's kind of like that's how it's tracking me because it knows I'm there a lot. It's like, okay, like this is home. And I'm like, okay, how does it know that? It's pretty crazy. Or like yeah, like you're saying, Brandon, on Snapchat, like you can definitely see people's location. I've like looked at it before and all of a sudden I'm seeing all these people's location. And I'm like, I don't want to see that, but clearly they're sharing it or they don't maybe realize that they're sharing it with everyone. And I can see all these people on the map. So yeah, Scary stuff. Make sure that you guys are on ghost mode for sure. You don't want people knowing where you're at all the time. That's not good. Okay. So I guess we'll move on to the third part of this question. So is there anything about your digital footprint that you regret? This kind of ties into the other question, what makes you proud about it? Or this is kind of like the opposite. Like, what do you regret? Is there something that you may have posted one day, or let's say written on Twitter, whatever it may be on Facebook, that you feel like you wish you didn't do? And what would you like to change or curate if you could? So going forward, kind of what would you do differently? So I'll give you guys a second to think about that. You might not even have a specific example. I don't think I've ever posted anything that I really regret posting, but if you have, you're welcome to share your experience with that, or you can theoretically share like what you would do or what you want to change going forward. So I'll give you guys a second to think about that a little bit. Okay, I think I'll get us started. And if anyone has any thoughts, you're welcome to share. Maybe this will just get some ideas rolling. Something that kind of comes to mind when I look at the question, like what would you change, or is there anything that you regret? I guess posting too often, like let's say posting on Instagram, like my stories of places I've been or where I'm at and stuff. That's something that I regret, because I think, looking back, it has got me into a little bit of trouble. Just because, people would see that I'm at a certain place, or like I didn't invite them, or I'm with certain people, and that's caused issues in itself. Or people telling my mom that like I was at a certain place and she didn't know. This was back in the day, of course, but that is something that definitely, Brandon, that's something that definitely looking back, I'm like, okay, it was, I probably should have been a bit smarter about that. But definitely something to keep in mind. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that anymore now that I'm older and married, but looking back, it was not fun to deal with in the moment. Does anyone else have any similar experiences or thoughts on that?
I'll relate to you, Summer. I never post like if I'm like out, doing stuff partying, 'cause um my mom's gonna get upset if she finds
Yeah.
out. And my sisters follow me, so
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I can't
Right.
risk that. I can't risk that. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll intend to post because of that reason as well.
Yeah.
Another I would say thing that I regret is I used to like during like maybe like ninth grade or eighth grade, I had like an Instagram account
Hmm.
where I will post like memes and
Hmm.
like dark humor.
Yeah.
So I would like if a recruiter will see that, I'll probably get in trouble.
Yeah, that's a
Anything
really
like
good
that.
point, Brandon. Yeah, for sure. And like
So
dark humor to you, sorry, not to cut you off, but just kind of to add, like to you, for example, that might be really funny. To me as well, that might be funny,
mhm.
but to some people, it could be offensive, right?
Yeah.
So totally get where you're coming from, that, thinking about your career, thinking about school, probably not the best idea to do. But obviously I think for you, your intention was good, but it's more just like
Mhm.
obviously it could have repercussions for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Jonathan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I relate with what Brandon said, because that's the thing that jumped out at me that like I regret. But the like thinking now, like there's tech like realistically, I don't think there's anything that I could do about like all those like old Instagram accounts that I had. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's like the thing I that's the thing that I related to the most. The thing that I regret was like all those old Instagram accounts that I made when I was in middle school. They're
Mhm.
just so like it's just so cringy to look back
Yeah.
at. It's just like, oh my God. Because like Brandon said, like I wouldn't like out like edgy jokes or whatever, but like I
Yeah.
would like I was really obsessed with like video games at that time. I was really obsessed with like because this is like middle school, so I was obsessed with like the newest like Grand Theft Auto game, and that's like all I would talk about on Instagram. And like if a recruiter read that, they would be like, "Why is this man talking about like other men killing each other? Like it's
Oh
like
my
really
gosh.
intense
Yeah.
stuff." Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
for sure.
what? And I was like, "What is going on?" So yeah, I just wish all of that was gone. Honestly, like that's just so embarrassing to look back at. I'm just like, "Oh my God, what am I? What was I thinking? I was like 13 years old. What am I thinking?" Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's understandable because, like, obviously, like you were young, so your intentions were good. It's not like you were posting anything to offend anyone or whatever. It was more just because that's something you enjoy that you wanted to post about and talk about. But like you're saying, Jonathan, yeah, it's like looking back, you're probably wishing that you didn't do that. But you know what? c'est la vie. We live and we learn and we move on and we educate ourselves. So it's all good. I'm obviously assuming that a recruiter wouldn't look at your, your page from when you were 13 and worry about that. It's more like now, if you, as an adult, if you were to post something like that, be like, okay, that could be offensive for sure. And it could definitely affect your, your future, your career, things like that. So definitely good to keep in mind. Absolutely. Does anyone else have any thoughts or want to share their experiences with that? Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
I feel like something that I regret is like what you mentioned too. Like I remember like in high school, I would want to post like everything I was eating or like
Yeah.
everywhere. Like like when I'd go places, I'd always want to post that. And like looking back at it, I don't do that anymore. Cause like, I mean, I feel like we all do this when people post food. Like we just like skip through the stories, like no
Yeah.
one really cares.
No one really
So
cares.
that's what I think of. I'm like, people wouldn't want to see this, and like, I honestly have no reason to post this. So like, why am I gonna post it?
Unless it looks like really busted, like it looks great.
Yeah,
Like, okay, you know
yeah,
what? We'll post this one. But I know
yeah.
I totally get it, Karen. Yeah, it's like, okay, always posting what you're eating or going out. Like, who really cares about that,
Mm-hmm.
realistically? So definitely a good thing to keep in mind for sure. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the last part of this handout. Oh, there's actually bunch more questions. We'll see. I think we talked about a lot, so I think that there's going to be some questions that we might have already touched on. But this is a good one. So what should you consider before posting online? This is a very general question, but let's say you're going to post something. What are some things that come to your mind of like before you post it? So I'll give an example. I'll let you guys kind of think about this, but before I post something, I would think about is okay, who is seeing my story, let's say? Do I want to filter out who's seeing it and who's not? Because you can obviously block people or restrict people, things like that. So I would consider that. I'd obviously want to consider if what I'm posting is offensive. Um, I most of the time I don't post anything offensive. I don't think I ever do, but maybe it'd be offensive to someone. So that's something that I would also want to consider as well. Do you guys have any thoughts on kind of what you would think about before posting something, whether it's a tweet, whether it's a story, a post, sending a snap? What are your thoughts on that? I'll give you a second to reflect. Yeah, go ahead, Jamal.
But can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's a little
Okay.
delayed. Oh, yeah, you're good.
So, so the thing I think about before I post something is if, uh, um, it's good now. I think my internet was lagging.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. Something I think about before I post something is if the picture is appropriate enough. If like does the picture itself look good? Like if it's not blurry or anything. Or, like if there's anything in the background that should be removed. Or and also like where I should post it as well because like it depends. Like sometimes you may want to have it on have your family friends see it, or maybe you just want your friends to see it. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are very good points. Yeah, for sure, Jamal. And I like kind of what you were saying about like the background as well. I don't think people think about that, but sometimes when you post something, you might not realize that there's people in the back or there might be something in the back that you don't really want shown. And I think that, it's kind of common like sense at this point, but if you're posting something, you wouldn't want to just post like strangers on your Instagram. Like I feel like that's a little disrespectful to them or uncomfortable to them. I wouldn't want to be posted on someone's Instagram, let's say. So I think it's important to definitely think about like who's in your background, what's in your background. You might not be focusing on that immediately, but then once you kind of look at the picture and go, okay, you know what, maybe I should just rethink this or take another one type of thing. So that's a very good point. Yeah, thanks for sharing those thoughts, Jamal. That's great. I think I saw another hand. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Brandon. Okay, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it was me. Some things I would consider is like you were saying, some if it's offensive. Um, let's see. Um, some place that you wouldn't like people to know where you're at.
Yeah.
I will also say that, like, for example, like Jamal was saying, like the background, sometimes like
Mhm.
the background says too much.
Yeah.
So you kind of also have to be aware of the background and stuff. Um, also, I would say like think about it as if it's like appropriate for you to
Yeah.
be saying, like, maybe you're like maybe like saying like your opinion or something,
Yeah.
but is it appropriate to say your opinion like on Instagram and social media?
Right.
Um or you know, you might say like a joke as well, but it's not like appropriate for everyone because a lot of people are watching your post, so they might see it through another perspective and they might not find it funny.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. That's a really good
uh
point, for sure.
yes, I would say those are the only things, to be honest, that pop
Yeah.
up to my mind.
Yeah, no, those are really good points for sure. And I kind of like how you mentioned like thinking about like if you post something maybe to you it doesn't seem offensive, but then to someone else like in their perspective, through their lived experience, through their trauma, through what they've gone through, that could be offensive to them. So we don't know because everyone has their own life experiences. So I think it is good to think about that, to not, if something's, it's kind of on the edge, it's not really offensive, but it might be, it's probably better to just not post it at all because someone most likely will take it to offense. So yeah, that's great, Brandon. Thank you. And Jonathan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like one thing that like one thing that I was thinking of is like like when considering before posting for me, because like I really I utilize like using Twitter, and with like that social media in particular, like there's not really like it's really hard to tell like if like a post that you make would like random people like there's a really high chance that like random people you've never met will like interact with your post. So that's like the thing that I consider before posting anything on there is that
Mhm.
like will this like who like if people are replying to it, if it like becomes like say like goes viral or whatever, like
Mhm.
yeah, like who are these people, like who even are like I my mind went blank for a second, but yeah, just considering like if
Mhm.
like all these people like are trying to like interact with you and stuff, it could be like detrimental. You could be like stuck on your phone, like just stuck like just I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think right now, but my
Yeah, no,
mind
that
went
that
blank.
makes total sense,
Hmm.
Jonathan. That totally makes sense. And it's like, especially with like, for example, TikTok nowadays, and you post something and like you don't know if it's gonna go
Hmm.
viral or not. It's kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
hard to really know like how the
Hmm.
algorithm works. But sometimes, yeah, you'll post something and it's gonna go viral. And it's like, do you really want that? Like, do you
Yeah,
want all that interaction, all those messages all the time, all those likes? Like some
yeah.
people do, some people live for that stuff, but I don't know. It's definitely good to think about. I personally wouldn't want that, but to each their own. I just feel like yeah, it's kind of a headache to deal
Yeah,
with.
and
And I
it
don't
could
know.
be weird because what if the thing that gets viral is like it's a like say you made it as a joke, or it's like an opinion you don't even hold. You just said
Yeah.
it like just to say it, and then like
Yeah.
now it's like super popular. That's the thing that like really that's the thing that really happens a lot. I notice on like social media on Twitter specifically, where people
Yeah.
would just like say things just to say them, and then it becomes popular, and then they're like trying to backtrack. They're like, no, 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 I'd like, and it's just like why
Yeah.
even post this to begin with? Like, what's even the point? Like, what was even the point
Right.
of this whole hoopla like that you just threw yourself in? Yeah.
Right. 100%. Exactly. I don't have Twitter, but I can totally imagine that that's kind of how it's like that type of environment for sure. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Jonathan. That's great. And we'll move on to Brittany.
Yeah. I think going back to what we talked last week, if you're going to be posting news or, you know, something similar, you have to corroborate and you have to make sure that what you're posting is true. So you don't want to be misspreading information. So I think that's something to consider before posting online.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're actually reading my mind. I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't know when exactly that came into my head, but just throughout these conversations, I was thinking that this really ties back to last week and how we talked about thinking about what you're posting before you post it to make sure it's not like fake news or, you're spreading misinformation. That can cause a lot of issues. And even if you're thinking about kind of more related to this topic today, if you're thinking about like your career and your future, if you're kind of seen online posting fake news and reposting things that aren't true, that's also not a good look on yourself because it just shows that you're not really educating yourself on actual issues going on. You're just posting whatever you see, a really, crazy caption, and then you start reposting that and it becomes a big thing. Like it's not super wise to do. It's very good to do our research and to kind of to know kind of what's happening in the news and to inform yourself rather than to just post like whatever, seems like, the headline super crazy or whatever. So And there's a lot of that going around on TikTok and this, that. Obviously, TikTok, a lot of it is true, but I'm sure there's a lot of it that isn't. And they just want likes and they want interaction. So definitely something to keep in mind. Absolutely. Thanks, Brittany. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this before I move on? Okay. Jonathan, sorry, did you just raise your hand again or was that from before?
Oh yeah, I just had a
Yeah,
small
yeah, go
thought
for it.
because I like
Yeah.
read it because it was really hard to come up with like things to like because I think the reason I was thinking because it was really hard for me to think of things to like that I think about when posting, and I
Yeah.
think that like made me realize that I was like, oh, I think the issue actually is that the majority of people don't think before they post, so that's like the big
Yeah.
issue. That's like
Oh,
so
100%.
when you confronted us with that question, like I was thinking and I was like reflecting on it. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
maybe like a majority of the time I'm not really thinking when I post. I just post just because
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just on my phone and I just posted something because I just saw it. I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
lot of the times, yeah,
Exactly.
I guess a lot of the times, like a lot of people just aren't really thinking what they post. Yeah.
Right. They're not taking like a second or two to actually just like reflect for a little bit. But I also think kind of on the other end of that, I think that we do automatically think before we post in a way. Like, for example, I don't really think about it. It's just automatic, but I'll post something and I'll just know this is fine to post. It's just my meal. I'm out to dinner. I would know if I was about to post something like inappropriate or not really inappropriate, but something offensive. I think it would just automatically come to my mind like, okay, I probably shouldn't do that. But like you said, Jonathan, I think a majority of people don't even take that extra minute, couple seconds, whatever it may be, to just literally reflect and be like, is this worth posting? Is this going to cause issues? Is this offensive to someone? Obviously, our intention is not to offend anyone, right? I don't think any of us here wants to offend anybody. That's not, what a nice, kind person would do. So if we just kind of take a second to reflect on that, I think it will save us lots of headache in the long run, right? Just having these
Yeah.
conversations are good because we're on social media every day, all of us. So it's good to think about these things because we don't really talk about them or think about them much, but it's really, we're living in a world that it's so tech based and we're always on our phones and we're always on social media that it's good to reflect on this sometimes because it'll help us going forward. It'll help us with our careers, with our life. We obviously don't want to offend people, like I said, so it's just good to think about for sure. I think we kind of reviewed everything in this handout. There are a couple more questions, but based on our conversations, I think we did touch on a lot of them anyways, and they're kind of similar questions. So I think I'm going to move on to the last part of this, which is just a couple tips that we kind of learned from the video. Just give me one quick sec, and I'm just going to pull that up. And we're just going to discuss this. It's kind of just like a little recap of what we learned today. So the first tip for connecting with purpose is to do a search of your own digital footprint. So I don't know if anyone's ever looked themselves up on Google, that just like literally Googled your name and just see what pops up. That's always good to know kind of like what people are seeing, especially like I mentioned before, if you're applying to a job and you kind of want to know what they would see if they look you up, it's kind of interesting to look at. Like even when I looked myself up, I was like, okay, I'm right under cyber seniors. So people can check that I work, which is fine. People can check that I work at cyber seniors like right off the bat. And then I was kind of looking, okay, is there any of my social medias? Is there anything that I've posted? There isn't, thankfully, but it is good to know what people would see. So I definitely recommend that you guys do that. The next point is to think before you post. This is a very big kind of, I guess, recap of everything we've talked about today, but just really thinking about it and giving a couple seconds to reflect and to make sure that what you're posting isn't offensive to someone or that it isn't inappropriate, or that it isn't going to cause any like repercussions after you post it. That kind of ties in as well to just making sure that you're not sharing your location with people if you don't want to, and just being very alert when it comes to that stuff as well. The third point is to create awareness about local/global problems and challenges. This is interesting. I feel like this point can kind of be taken too far sometimes. I think that people will just go, and want to post their opinion about everything. They might see it as raising awareness about global issues, let's say, but to another person, they might have a completely different perspective that might be offensive to them. And this isn't to say you shouldn't post about something you're passionate about or agree with. Sorry about that, that was loud. Just to kind of keep in mind that what you're posting is going to be visible to lots of people. And it is good to raise awareness of certain things, but it's also good to really reflect before you post something. That also kind of ties in to what Brittany was saying about making sure that we're posting information that's accurate from news resources like news outlets and stuff that are reputable, and to try to reflect as well if there's any biases in what we're reading or what we're seeing as well, because a lot of the things people post are not necessarily for informative reasons, but more to get interaction or likes or comments and stuff. It's not always real news, so definitely a good thing to keep in mind as well. So that kind of sums up our lesson today. This is the end of our program.